Yes, hello, and today is November 30th. Welcome back from Thanksgiving vacation. If you notice right over here where my cursor is, I have put in two YouTube videos that very briefly, in fact, the second YouTube video is 1 minute, but very briefly go over the Punic Wars, which will be the subject matter of our first discussion today, the Punic Wars. And with that, let's begin, shall we? So, yes, these are the Punic Wars. There were three Punic Wars, and in total between Rome and a city called Carthage. And Carthage today is in North Africa. Actually, the city doesn't exist. When at the end of the Third Punic War, the Romans totally destroyed the city. And when I mean destroyed, I mean they razed it. Razed. They knocked every wall down. And according to the story, went around and sowed the fields with salt. But I'm getting ahead of myself, shall I? The three Punic Wars. And in the middle part of the 5th century BC. And what happened was that in the First Punic War, basically you have Rome was an expanding republic that kept, you know, expanding kind of like a mold. It's that they would be threatened by a neighbor, defeat that neighbor, take over that neighbor, and then find themselves threatened by the next neighbor. And they pretty much took over the Italian peninsula that way. And then they bumped into these guys, the Carthaginians, the old. And by the way, once again, if you noticed up there, the word punis is the Latin word. It means Phoenician, which, once again, the Phoenicians are the ones that created the alphabet that we're using right now. And so it's their descendants, really. But anyway, the First Punic War, it was an upset. It was a great upset because the Romans, who had never had no navy, found themselves up against the Carthaginians, who had the best navy in the Mediterranean at the time. And the Romans, though, had one thing. The Romans had one advantage, and this will take them throughout many years, and that is the advantage of Roman organization. The Romans are very organized, and the Romans taught themselves. They basically trained, because having a navy back then, that meant you had to coordinate people who rowed boats, rowed these ships along with archers and people like that, and ships that could ram, and of course the wind power. And the Romans trained themselves at first how to do it on land, and then went out, faced the Carthaginians, and actually won. And like I said, it was a military upset. Now, the most remembered of the three Punic Wars is the Second Punic War, because that matches Rome versus one guy. His name, Hannibal. Hannibal. Hannibal, who had fancied himself to be a descendant of Alexander the Great. At least that's what he told everybody. And to be real honest, Hannibal was a very capable general. And as you saw in the clip there, Hannibal is going to march overland from Spain over the Alps. And, he had 60,000 men, and that's something. But he also had about 50 war elephants. Yeah, war elephants, who were, going to bring death and destruction to Rome. Although it is worth noting that, I've been on the Alps, in the Alps one time. They're a very steep mountain range, and it's not exactly conducive to taking elephants over the mountain range, which is exactly what Hannibal did. Fact of the matter is, of his 50 elephants that he started out with, by the time they got on the other side, the Roman side of the Alps, the Italian side of the Alps, one survived, but still had Hannibal. And so Hannibal goes about through Rome, causing havoc, wrecking destruction, so much so. But whereas the Romans were losing, in Italy, the Romans were actually winning back in Carthage, back in Hannibal's hometown, city of Carthage. And so the city of Carthage sends a messenger to Hannibal saying, hey, get your butt over here. And there, at the Battle of Zama, Zama, the Roman general Scipio the Elder, Scipio Africanus, Scipio the Elder, he was also called, Scipio, was able to defeat Hannibal, and Hannibal pretty much goes into the wastebasket of history after that. Now, that was the second war. The third war occurs basically because the Romans were just sick of Carthage. The Carthaginians had attacked a Roman ally, and Rome said, all right, this is it. So the Romans marched over to the city of Carthage, and like I said, they conquered the city, sold all the inhabitants. Everybody who lived in the city of Carthage was sold into slavery. The walls of the city itself were totally destroyed, knocked down. The place was flattened. And then the Romans went around to the surrounding fields and sowed them in salt so that nothing would ever grow there again. And yeah, I mean, the Romans said, you're done. And so after that, Rome will pretty much have domination. As it says there, by 146 BC, Rome had pretty much surrounded the Mediterranean Sea, which they haughtily referred to as Mare Nostrum, our sea. And while Rome called itself a republic, it also was rife with power struggles. Often more occurred within the ranks of Roman society than with its neighboring civilizations. I mean, to which Rome seemed endlessly at war with, just to solidify its own borders and own security. But anyway, the point of the matter was there were lots of power struggles within the Roman Republic, lots of assassinations, lots of intrigue, you see. Of course, when one mentions Roman history, you got to mention Julius Caesar. And Caesar will be so well liked, so well thought of, that later his name becomes the name for the ruler of Rome. His name will be Caesar. Yeah. Caesar, interesting character. He was a great publicity artist. He was able to conquer Gaul, which you say, where's Gaul? Gaul is what we now call France. And in the conquest of Gaul, he killed about 1 million, responsible for the deaths of about 1 million men, women, and children. The problem was, of course, the armies that opposed him were equipped with materials that were pretty much Stone Age, whereas Caesar, of course, had modern Roman legions, modern Roman tactics, modern Roman cooperation. And so, yeah. And the Romans under Caesar were pretty much an unstoppable juggernaut, although Julius Caesar himself halted at Great Britain. Yeah. Britain was inhabited by wildlings. Yeah, wildlings. Yeah, like Game of Thrones. People called the Picts, and Julius Caesar wanted no part of them. And so, yeah. But he was very popular. He was very good at spreading his own popularity, spreading his own stories of his own success. And he became so popular that the members of the Roman Senate became very suspicious of the guy. And not only that, Caesar, at one point in his career, goes down to Egypt. And in Egypt, he encounters the Queen Cleopatra. Yes. Cleopatra, at the time she met Julius Caesar, and Caesar by this time was like 50 years old. Cleopatra was a teenager, something like 17, 18. And yet, of course, morning, or afternoon, Mr. Di Maria.
fine. How are you doing?
I am well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and Cleopatra was, the story of how they met was actually intriguing. See, Cleopatra was the pharaohess, the queen of Egypt, but she was not alone. Cleopatra, like all Egyptian pharaohs, was married, wait for it, to her brother. Her brother at the time, the young Ptolemy, was all of 11 years old. And yes, they were married, even though Cleopatra really wasn't happy with the situation. And the two were kind of arguing over who's going to have top billing, stuff like that. And so Cleopatra thinks that if she gets on the good side of this guy, Caesar, that it could really help her. And so what she does, she hears that her brother Ptolemy has a meeting with Julius Caesar aboard Caesar's barge, which sets on the Nile River. And so what she does the night before, she has herself wrapped in a Egyptian carpet and taken to Julius Caesar. And when the carpet is laid out before Caesar, out rolls Cleopatra. And that night, Cleopatra and Caesar, how do we say this, become acquainted. So much so that by the next day, when young Ptolemy shows up and is like, what? He finds Caesar and his sister lying in bed smoking cigarettes. That's me being funny, but you know what I'm saying here. You know where they went here. And the poor Ptolemy himself, was immediately grabbed up by Roman soldiers, and they took him and they beat him against the walls of the ship, and then dropped him in the Nile. And so Cleopatra becomes the queen, and Caesar becomes her companion. And they hang out together for a while, so long, in fact, that they have a son named, wait for it, Caesarion. Yes, Caesarion. And so Caesar has to go back to Rome to take care of stuff. And Cleopatra and the son, they follow him to Rome. And of course, it scandalizes Roman society because, here is Julius Caesar, who has obviously had relations with this foreign person. Oh yeah, and Caesar's married. And so, yeah, like I said, scandalized society. But it wasn't a good thing. But anyway, and Caesar then, of course, as you all know, March 15th, 44 BC, beware the Ides of March, walked into the Senate chamber one day to deliver a speech, and where he was met by many of his best friends who stabbed him 27 times, including his best friend Marcus Brutus. Et tu, Brute, and you, Brutus. And so, yeah, that's where we'll end for today. And I will leave you with another film clip talking about Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. So, yes, thank you very much. And we'll pick up with Octavian Augustus Caesar tomorrow. Octavian Caesar. Yeah. Augustus Caesar. All right, stop sharing.